My daughter-in-law looked me square in the eye across the kitchen island and told me she'd be hosting a 2-week brand retreat at my house. 12 of her fellow influencers flying in from across the country to photograph every room, every hallway, every square inch of the home I spent 38 years building a life inside. I set down my coffee mug, looked back at her, and told her that sounded absolutely perfect. She beamed. What she didn't know was that I'd already spoken to a developer, and the house wouldn't be mine to offer much longer anyway. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Rex. I'm 67 years old. I spent nearly 4 decades as a licensed architect, designing custom homes and commercial buildings across Middle Tennessee. I understand how things are built, and more importantly, I understand how they fall apart. A structure doesn't collapse with a single dramatic crash. It settles, creaks, and folds in on itself almost silently, long after the real damage was done. That particular knowledge has served me in ways I never could have predicted when I first drew up blueprints at 28 years old. My wife Jo and I built our home in Brentwood together. A 4-bedroom craftsman on a double corner lot, surrounded by old tulip poplars, with a wraparound porch she designed herself. Jo was a landscape architect, and the garden was entirely her creation. Azaleas along the fence line that came in so thick and red every spring they looked like something out of a painting. She passed away 5 years ago. Breast cancer. She was 61, and it went fast, which people kept telling me was a mercy. I suppose it is, for the person leaving. After she was gone, the house was very large and very quiet, but it was ours, and I wasn't ready to give that up. About 8 months after Joe's funeral, I made the mistake of telling my son that my door was open if he ever needed it. I meant it in the way fathers usually mean things like that. A genuine offer for a genuine emergency with a clear and reasonable end. I did not mean it as an indefinite tenancy agreement with no lease, no rent, and no discussion. I should have been more specific. My son Tate is 35. He works at a marketing agency downtown, managing accounts for regional companies, and he's capable and even clever when he's not standing in his wife's shadow. He married Chelsea 3 years ago. Chelsea is 32, a lifestyle content creator with somewhere around 90,000 Instagram followers and a YouTube channel that generates occasional brand partnership income. She is beautiful in the polished, deliberate way of someone whose appearance is a professional product. She photographs everything: meals, morning light, the arrangement of throw pillows, herself at various angles with various expressions. She is also the most entitled person I have encountered in 67 years of living. They asked to move in 20 months ago. Tate explained it at my kitchen table one Wednesday evening. They'd been priced out of their rental. The landlord had raised the rate past what they could absorb, and they needed a few months to save for a down payment on something of their own. Just 4 or 5 months. They'd be quiet. They'd contribute. I had the word no sitting right at the front of my mouth. I'd shaped it clearly in my mind, but Tate had his mother's eyes, just slightly, around the corners, and I swallowed it. I said yes, 4 to 5 months. That was 20 months ago. The signs were there early. Within the first 2 weeks, Chelsea rearranged my living room furniture without asking because the existing layout was blocking the natural light for content. I came downstairs one morning and the 2 club chairs Joe and I bought at an estate sale in Franklin were pushed against the wall. Chelsea stood in the center of the room holding her phone overhead at different angles, testing exposures. Her ring light lived in the hallway, fully extended, plugged into the wall, repositioned only when she needed it in a different room. I tripped over the base of it walking to the bathroom at 2 in the morning and hit the door frame hard enough to bruise my shoulder. She left espresso pods in a trail from the machine to the trash, never quite making the full distance. She stored her photography props in the guest closet without asking, and gradually claimed the entire built-in shelf unit in the dining room for backdrops and lighting equipment. I absorbed all of it. I told myself it was temporary. I swept the trails of pods into the trash. I stepped around the ring light. I watched. The thing that crystallized it for me happened on a Saturday afternoon in late October. I was in the garage reorganizing some seasonal tools when I noticed the box shoved in the corner behind my paint cans. It was a medium-sized moving box, flaps folded back, packed loosely with old newspaper. Inside were Joe's figurines. She'd spent 20 years collecting them. Hand-painted ceramic birds and small pastoral scenes she found at estate sales and antique markets from here to Asheville. She kept them on the fireplace mantel. That's where they had always been, as far back as I could remember. Chelsea had taken them down and packed them up, without saying a word to me, because they didn't photograph well against the new furniture arrangement, and she needed the mantel surface for a holiday content series she was planning. I stood in the garage holding a blue-painted ceramic wren, and felt something settle inside my chest. Not rage, something quieter and more precise than that. I carried the box inside, brought it to my bedroom, and spent that evening unwrapping every piece and arranging them on my dresser where I could see them each morning. I didn't say anything to Tate or Chelsea about it. I just watched more carefully after that. A few weeks later, I was sorting through the mail when I found a statement for the joint savings account I'd opened for Tate when he graduated college. I'd funded it with $25,000 and told him it was strictly for real emergencies. A medical situation, a sudden job loss, something that couldn't wait. I'd checked it once a couple of years back and it was holding steady. The current balance was $412. I read through the transaction history at the kitchen counter with the statement flat on the granite. Photography equipment. A used SUV Tate described at the time as a work vehicle, but that Chelsea drove exclusively. 2 paid brand trips, one to Palm Springs, one to Austin, that Chelsea had announced as amazing opportunities at the time without mentioning who funded them. A professional video editing workstation. Studio lighting equipment I recognized from the set currently living in my hallway. He'd emptied the account, piece by piece, to build her content operation. I folded the statement. I put it in my desk drawer. I didn't bring it up at dinner. The final piece came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was cutting back the azaleas on the south side of the house, close to the wall, working quietly near the open kitchen window. Chelsea was inside on a call, pacing the way she did when she was performing for someone she wanted to impress. "The morning light here is just remarkable," I heard her say. "East-facing windows in the main room. Incredible before 10 o'clock. I've already had 3 brands reach out about using the space for shoots. My father-in-law doesn't really occupy most of the house, so there's always good availability." I set the pruning shears down on the garden wall. She had been letting brands send photographers and prop stylists into my home, using Joe's garden as a shoot location, charging access to a house she didn't own and hadn't asked my permission to monetize. I went inside. I washed my hands at the kitchen sink. Chelsea walked past me with a quick, distracted smile, the kind of smile you give furniture, and continued her call down the hallway. 3 weeks later, at Sunday dinner, she slid the folder across the table. Tate's pasta. He was always good at that. Chelsea set down her fork, picked up her phone out of habit, then set it back down again and pushed the folder toward me like she was passing a condiment. It was titled House Usage Calendar, Brand Retreat, February. 12 content creators, 2 weeks. She'd confirmed it with all of them already. Every room had a scheduled shoot window. Living room, dining room, kitchen, back garden, wraparound porch. A production timeline broken into morning and afternoon slots. The kitchen, she noted helpfully, would need to remain staged on shoot days, and couldn't be used for personal cooking during those windows. She suggested I prepare meals in advance and use the mini-fridge downstairs. Then she handed me the second document, a budget sheet, catering for 12 people across 14 days. Fresh floral arrangements refreshed every 3 days. A prop and furniture rental company. Specialty lighting for the opening weekend. Premium coffee service. $9,200. She'd like me to front the expenses, since the brand partnership income would process 90 days post-completion. I looked at the number. I looked at my son. Tate had gone very still. I could feel him not looking at me. I waited through several deliberate seconds of silence, genuinely giving him the space to do something, to say something. He felt the weight of it. His shoulders shifted. He looked up. "Chelsea works really hard at this, Dad," he said. His voice was quiet and apologetic in entirely the wrong way. "This could be a big step for her career. It's only 2 weeks. You'd really be doing us a favor." I looked at my son for a long, clear moment. Something in me went very still. "You know what?" I said, keeping my voice warm and unhurried. "That actually works out perfectly for me." Chelsea looked up fast. "Yeah?" "Absolutely." I picked up both documents, stacked them neatly, and set them to the side. "You've done a lot of planning here. I'll handle the expenses and clear whatever space you need. You focus on making the retreat a success." She clapped her hands together once, sharp, satisfied, the gesture of someone whose request has finally been answered by someone beneath them. "I knew you'd come around, Rex. I'm texting the girls tonight." She was already on her phone. Tate smiled at me, weak, grateful, relieved. I didn't return it. I excused myself after dinner and went to my study. I sat at the desk for a moment in the dark before turning on the lamp. Then I picked up the phone and called Baxter. Baxter has been my real estate attorney for over 2 decades. He is not a warm man. He's a former commercial litigator who treats contracts the way a surgeon treats an incision: precise, efficient, no sentiment. He'd been advising me for the better part of 18 months to address the situation in my house before it finished addressing itself. He answered on the second ring. There is a development group out of Atlanta that had been pursuing my property for a year and a half. My double-corner lot in Brentwood sat at exactly the intersection they needed to complete a boutique condominium project. 12 units, luxury finishes, targeted at professionals and empty nesters. They'd sent 4 written offers. I had declined all 4 without reading the numbers, because selling the house felt, at the time, like something I wasn't ready to name. I told Baxter to call them in the morning. I told him I had terms. That same night I opened my banking portal. I removed Tate as an authorized user on every shared account, closed his transfer permissions, and revoked his access to the household expense account I'd maintained since they moved in. Then I pulled up the supplementary cardholder section of my American Express account. Chelsea had requested a card on my account 7 months earlier. Household groceries and incidentals, she'd said. The transaction history was a detailed record of a woman who had never purchased a household grocery in her life. A luxury skincare subscription, a boutique furniture store in Green Hills, 2 separate sessions where she'd hired herself as the client for professional photo shoots, billed back to my card. There was a charge to a high-end athletic wear brand in an amount that suggested she'd bought the entire spring line. I didn't cancel the card that night. I set a transaction limit of $30 effective immediately and scheduled a hard cancellation to execute at midnight, exactly 4 days before the retreat. The timing was intentional. Then I started the extraction. An architect understands something most people don't. The value of a house is never in the walls themselves. It's in what fills them. I could leave the structure entirely intact and still remove everything that mattered. I began in my bedroom. Joe's figurines first, carefully repacked with proper padding into good boxes. Her jewelry, stored in a rosewood box I'd given her on our 25th anniversary. The small oil painting we'd bought on a trip to the Smoky Mountains. Mountains she loved, and I loved because she loved them. The quilt her mother had sewn that I still slept under every night. I drove each load across town to a climate-controlled storage unit I rented under the LLC I'd kept from my architectural practice. I stacked the boxes and organized them with the same care I gave a working blueprint. From there, I moved through the house methodically. Original artwork off the hallway walls, replaced with cheap framed prints sized to fill the same space. Good kitchen equipment boxed and carried out. The cast iron, the quality knives, the copper-bottomed pans Joe and I had bought piece by piece over 30 years, replaced with dollar store substitutes that photographed fine at a distance and would be worthless to anyone who actually tried to cook with them. First editions and meaningful books off the shelves, replaced with paperback bestsellers and old technical manuals I didn't need. The furniture stayed, too visible to move, but every drawer, cabinet, and closet I emptied completely. Chelsea came home early one afternoon and found me sealing a box in the living room. She paused and raised one perfectly shaped eyebrow. I let my expression go slightly sheepish. "Spring cleaning," I said. "Thought I'd get a head start before everyone arrives. Give the house more breathing room." The suspicion on her face dissolved into a smile, a genuine one, the pleased kind. "Rex, that is honestly such a good idea. This place has been carrying too much visual weight for the kind of content we're going to be making. Less clutter is always better." She tilted her head. "Do the bookshelves in the front room too if you can. My friend Jenna hates a busy background." "I'll get to it this week," I said. She went upstairs humming. I stood in the living room with an empty box in my hands and allowed myself 3 seconds of genuine appreciation before I went back to work. She had handed me the perfect alibi and didn't know it. The closing timeline with the development group came together faster than I expected. They agreed to every term. Final closing February 17th, 2 days after the retreat was scheduled to wrap up. And the utilities. That detail I had specified myself. Gas, electric, and water transferred to their corporate entity on February 10th. Standard pre-demolition protocol, immediate hard shutoff, no exceptions. Baxter had paused on the phone when I explained the February 10th date in relation to the retreat schedule. He said, "You understand what that means for whoever's still in the house." "I understand precisely what it means," I said. He was quiet a moment, then, "Sign where I tell you." I signed everything, every page, every initial, every transfer authorization. With each signature, I felt the load redistributing, the way a structure settles correctly when the weight is properly managed. I booked a week in Savannah, Georgia. Jo and I had talked for years about going. She loved the architecture, the squares, the canopy of live oaks dripping with Spanish moss. We never made it together. I reserved a room at a hotel on the river and arranged a private car to the airport. The morning the retreat was set to begin, I came downstairs with my carry-on bag and my leather overnight case. I was dressed and unhurried, and the house was already buzzing with Chelsea's pre-event energy. She was on a call, directing Tate to shift the dining table toward the window for better light. She stopped mid-sentence when she saw my bags. "Where are you going?" "Savannah," I said. "I've had the trip planned." The color in her face changed. "Rex, no, the retreat starts today. I needed you here for the catering delivery, and the prop rental company needs someone to sign." "The grocery list you gave me is still on the counter," I said pleasantly. "If you leave in the next 30 minutes, you can probably get reasonable produce at the Whole Foods on West End." "What are you talking about? I tried to use your card at the florist yesterday, and there must be something wrong with the account." "There's nothing wrong with it," I said. "Use your own accounts for the retreat expenses. The brand income will cover it when it clears next quarter." She stared at me. I watched the sequence of understanding move across her face, one realization at a time. Tate came in from the dining room. "Dad, what's going on?" I looked at my son. Not with anger, I was past that. With the clean, clear clarity of an architect who has finished his assessment. "I'm going on a trip I should have taken a long time ago," I said. "I'll be out of your way." "Dad, we cannot manage 12 people without you. The house, we need you here." "You told me this was Chelsea's career," I said. "I'm certain she can manage." I picked up my bags. I walked to the front door. I opened it. The February morning was cool and gray and completely still. I didn't look back. I was sitting on the hotel terrace with sweet tea and a view of the Savannah River when the first transaction notification hit my phone. Chelsea's attempted charge at a specialty market. $6,840 in catering deposits, florals, and prop rentals. Declined. Then a second attempt. Declined again. The third notification told me she'd switched to her personal card. I knew what that meant. The cards with the 24% interest rates and the rolling balances, absorbing the full weight of an event she'd expected me to fund. She would be paying for my house's last performance for months. The retreat lasted 3 days before the utilities went dark. I watched it on the exterior camera feed, still active on a dedicated cellular backup. Tuesday morning, just past 8 o'clock. The front door opened, and a woman in a hotel robe emerged holding her phone, talking to it, then another. Then Chelsea, appearing on the porch, with the rigid, overmanaged energy of someone processing news she can't accept yet. Tate's voicemails came in waves. He'd gone to the breaker box. He'd flipped every switch. He'd called the electric company and navigated the automated system, and finally reached a representative who had looked up the address and explained, calmly and without apology, that the account had been transferred to a commercial development entity. The property was flagged for pre-demolition protocol. No restoration was possible. The structure was scheduled for commercial redevelopment. I listened to the voicemails. I didn't call back. The development company's property manager arrived Wednesday morning with 2 people from the title company and a locksmith standing 2 steps behind. 12 influencers were still in the house, most of them filming the situation for their social channels. The house that had drawn them for its aesthetics now serving as the backdrop for their friends' very public unraveling. Chelsea's retreat was being documented in real time by the exact audience she'd invited to witness her success. The property manager served the papers. Tate stood in the foyer and read my signature on the purchase agreement. The papers said what they said. Chelsea's mother drove up from Alabama later that day. I had audio from the porch camera only. I watched her walk up the front path with the purposeful stride of a woman arriving to assign blame rather than offer comfort. Chelsea came out alone 30 minutes later and sat on the steps in the cold for a while. The influencers were gone by nightfall. Ride shares, canceled brand deals, hotel rebookings across the city. 2 days later, I called Tate back from my hotel room, the river catching morning light outside my window. He apologized at length. Then he made his requests. He and Chelsea were in an extended stay motel off the interstate. Their accounts were overdrawn. The SUV lease was 3 payments behind, and a repossession notice had arrived. He needed help, just enough to get back on their feet, just a bridge loan, just something. I let him finish. Then I told him about his mother, about the 34 years I spent building something with her, not just the house, but the life, the discipline of it, the way we saved and planned and deferred things we wanted so that we'd have something solid underneath us. I told him I'd open my home to him because I trusted his character and believed he'd make good on it. That I'd been right about the first part, but wrong about the second. I told him about the night Chelsea announced her parents needed the master bedroom, and he looked at me and shrugged. That was the night I finished, waiting for something different. He started to respond. I didn't stay for it. I blocked both numbers. I set my phone face down on the table beside my empty tea glass. Outside, a container ship was moving upriver, slow and enormous, trailing a line of white birds behind it. 2 months later, I closed on a 2-bedroom condominium in Charleston, South Carolina. A 19th century building in the historic district with 12-foot ceilings and east-facing windows that look out over the harbor. I paid cash, a small fraction of the sale proceeds. I had the architectural drawings from my favorite projects framed for the study. I unpacked Joe's figurines and set them on the windowsill where the morning light comes in long and low and catches the painted detail on everyone. People have told me, meaning well, that it must have been hard to let go of the house I drew by hand, the home where Joe grew her garden and we lived our life. There is grief in it, I won't say otherwise. But I've understood something this past year that I should have understood sooner, that Joe was never in those walls. She was in the way I still reach for the coffee before I've thought it through. She's in the specific satisfaction of a plan that executes cleanly. She's in the photograph I keep on the windowsill here, the one from our anniversary trip to the mountains, where she's standing at the overlook with wind in her hair, squinting into the sun and laughing at something I said. She comes with me. She always did. What wasn't worth carrying was the slow, careful erosion of everything we built together, served up cheerfully to people who had never sacrificed a single thing to earn it. Some structures you build to last a lifetime. Others you design from the beginning with a clean and deliberate exit. I pour my coffee now in a kitchen that smells like salt air off the harbor. Joe's birds are in the light on the sill. The room is quiet with the particular quality that only belongs to a space that is completely, unequivocally yours. It is, in every way that matters, absolutely perfect.